I'm Hanna Almario, a tax director at RG Manabat and Company, a member firm of KPMG International. Welcome to another episode of RG Manabat and Company Insights, where we will dissect and discuss the salient provisions of the Capital Markets Efficiency Promotion Act, or CMEPA, how we think this new law will impact taxpayers, and what we hope will be addressed in the implementing rules and regulations. Joining me today is Karen Quizon-Sakkam, the Deputy Head of Tax at RG Manabat and Company. Hi, Karen.
Hello, Hannah. It's great to be here, and I am sure our listeners are excited to know the changes in our tax rules brought about by CMEPA, which, by the way, took effect last July 1, 2025.
Yes, and I'm really excited about our discussion today. How about we start with the impact of CMEPA on passive income?
Well, Hannah, before CMEPA, the tax rates on interest income, yield, and other monetary benefit varied depending on the classification of taxpayers, whether individual or corporate. And for interest income on deposits, it would also matter if the deposit is with the regular banking unit or the foreign currency deposit unit of the bank. But with CMEPA, we now have a uniform final withholding tax rate of 20%, with the exception of non-residents.
So, Karen, as an individual citizen, the interest income I earn from my FCD deposits used to be subject to 15% FWT. With CMEPA, I will now be subject to 20% FWT.
Well, if you look at it from an investor's perspective, yes, that could mean more taxes for you, Hannah. But if you look at it from a tax compliance or tax reporting perspective, it is less confusing now because of the uniform tax rate.
I see. How about bonds? Any changes in the rules on bonds brought about by CMEPA?
Oh, there is, Hannah. Prior to CMEPA, gains realized from the sale, exchange, or retirement of bonds with a maturity period of more than 5 years are excluded from gross income and therefore exempt from income tax and final withholding taxes. With CMEPA, the tax exemption is now limited to specific government-issued bonds, as well as gains from redemption of shares or units of participation in mutual funds or unit investment trust funds.
But Karen, I see that under the transitory provision of CMEPA, any tax exemption and preferential rate on financial instruments issued or transacted prior to July 1, 2025 shall be subject to the prevailing tax rate at the time of their issuance. So, does this mean that if the bonds were issued prior to July 1, 2025, the trading and redemption gains should still be exempt?
I agree with you, Hannah, and I would like to point out that in the transitory provision you mentioned, it's not just limited to bonds, it covers all financial instruments that have a maturity period.
That's a good point. I also see that under CMEPA, the 15% capital gains tax, or CGT, applies to the sale, exchange, or other disposition of shares of stocks of domestic corporations and of foreign corporations.
Yes, Hannah, but this is limited only to sale of shares of stocks that are unlisted, or if the sale takes place outside the facilities of a stock exchange. And I think it should also be clarified that for sale of shares of a foreign corporation by a foreign corporation or foreign individual, this should not be subject to capital gains tax in the Philippines. As we all know, foreign individuals or foreign corporations are taxable only on Philippine-sourced income.
So there's no change in the CGT rate, but the CGT scope now covers unlisted shares in a foreign corporation. How about documentary stamp tax, or DST? Did CMEPA change any rules?
Yes, CMEPA actually reduced the documentary stamp tax on original issuance of shares. It used to be 2 pesos for every 200 peso par value of the shares, and now the rate is 75% of 1%, but still based on the par value of the shares. CMEPA also exempted from DST the original issuance, redemption, or other disposition of shares in a mutual fund company, as well as the issuance of a certificate or evidence of participation in a mutual fund or unit investment trust fund.
So this could mean lower transaction cost, right? And looking at it from an initial capitalization perspective, this puts equity infusion in the same footing as debt infusion, as the DST rate for both original issuance of shares and issuance of debt instruments are now the same.
I agree with you, Hannah. Plus, with the DST exception, I hope mutual funds and unit investment trust funds would now be more appealing.
Hopefully, this will attract more investors in the Philippines and boost our country's economy.
Yes, I have the same hope, Hannah.
Well, I think that covers our discussion for today's episode. I really think that we had an insightful conversation on passive income and DST. Thank you for tuning in at RG Manabat and Company Insights CMEPA series. Stay tuned for the next one.
To
Stay
stay
updated.
updated, don't
Don't
forget
forget
to
to
subscribe.
subscribe.